Welcome to the Act Out Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Tomlin. Today's guest is women's coach, author, and just an all-around girl who glows, Angie Hawkins. Let's roll the tape. Hey, Angie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing well. I'm glad that we could finally get the technology thing sorted out.
You finally know what my voice sounds like.
I know it is so much better than dead air. I tell you. Can you tell our audience what an inner glow coach is?
Yes. So I help women rekindle their inner glow. So how I usually describe it is a lot of women, they're only playing at 80%, meaning their life looks good on paper, but they don't feel good inside. So I help them feel just as good as their external world looks.
I can imagine that is a pretty highly sought after skill. It's something that a lot of people kind of struggle with. What got you into that specific that specific area?
Well, my own personal journey, because for decades, I was always living my life for other people. Like I did the society expected path of going to college, having a corporate career. And I spent 20 years in corporate America, never even questioning, what do I want? I was always just going through the motions of what society or my family or other people expected of me. And my life looked great on paper. I have a great LinkedIn profile, all of the other things, but I always felt like something was missing. And the thing was doing the things that were true to me. And it is hard to make that change and go against the grain of society. But once you get over that transition, the other side is amazing. Because I used to live my life in a space of, I didn't even think happiness and fulfillment was something that was available to me. I was like, that's just how life is. You just trudge through when you don't necessarily have to be happy. But now I live in this space where I'm happy and fulfilled most of the time. And that doesn't mean I don't have challenges or struggles or anything. It just means that I handle life a lot differently and it just feels a lot more exciting. And best of all, it feels like mine because I don't live my life for other people anymore.
You said a lot of interesting things there, but one of the first things I really picked up on was that you had everything on paper, that you should be happy, but you didn't even realize that you weren't following your own dreams, but kind of societal expectations. I was in that exact same boat.
Yeah.
How do you think, or why do you think so many people kind of fall into that trap?
Well, the way I always describe it is, we're all born with this light inside of us because you see little kids, maybe 6 years old, they're screaming, they're running around, they are so unfiltered. They do not care what anyone thinks. But I think it starts in the family system, then the school system, and then you have these larger societal systems. And all of these things tell you what you should or should not do. So that slowly starts dimming your light and you stop questioning, what do I want? And you start fitting into these outside rules because you want to belong and want to be connected. And you know what I mean? So you have that fear of losing connection or going against the grain, but then that conditions you to stop caring about what you want. And a lot of women that come to me, they've also lost a lot of self-trust because they've learned to trust all these things outside of themselves. So you just become conditioned that, my opinion doesn't matter because I need to fit into everything outside of myself. And you can achieve a certain level of success that way. Like I certainly did. But then I just came to this point in my life where it's like, I am not happy and I can't continue living this way.
Yeah, I think that it took a very long time for me to realize, one of the big reasons why I didn't trust myself was because I had no idea what I was feeling inside my body. I didn't know what my body was trying to tell me. If if I was all worked up or something, I just assumed that I was irrevocably screwed up. It wasn't something making me nervous or something that I could deal with. It was completely opposite of that.
No, that's so true because I think men are taught to suppress anger or men don't cry or things like that. But women are also conditioned to suppress their emotions because you've probably heard oh, you're too emotional or you're making too big of a deal about it. out of it. So women are also conditioned to suppress emotions. And that's the result, right? Because it's like, oh, well, someone outside is telling me that I'm overreacting or shouldn't be feeling this way. So you start overriding your own guidance system. Cause like we all have intuition. We're human beings. We all have feelings, but we start overriding all of our humanness for things outside of ourselves.
It is so interesting that you said that because I can remember being like in elementary school and like getting and like being really happy about something and like wanting to like express joy, but like thinking, no, like people are gonna judge me. And then I remember like looking over and was like, but like the girls could do that. Like girls could like show like these different,
Uh,
girls would be able to have like these uninhibited things. But it didn't really cross my mind that girls were just as conditioned to suppress as boys, but from a completely
yeah.
different, like,
Different things, or even I hear this from a lot of females, like, we weren't really taught to speak up for ourselves when things were uncomfortable, so
mhm,
I there's so many commonalities between the genders, like, we were taught to suppress emotions, but I think the emotions that we were taught to suppress are just different. There's the nuances are just in the different kinds of emotions. Yeah, because that's a really good point. Or, like, in my home, I wasn't allowed to celebrate my wins because my mom would be like, "Oh, you'll make the other kids jealous," or even as an adult, I remember there were a few times where I was, like, all happy about something, and then she would rain on my parade because she was like, "Oh, you're taking away from other people's success," or whatever, you know what I mean? So, I feel like
hmm.
that's a common theme in a lot of people's lives.
As I hear that, I think of like, like one of your, like core tenets now is like kind of having your own inner light shine.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
to kind of like see the genesis of that is really cool.
Yeah,
So,
because we all have like a uniqueness. So why wouldn't you want to celebrate it? Even if, for example, there's other, like I call myself an inner glow coach, but the actual, like what I'm doing, there's a lot of other coaches like that. But I actually have peers, like we are friends with each other, we collaborate with each other because we don't see it as competition. It's like you can actually do more when you're united, but somehow we're taught to like see someone else's competition if they're doing the exact
mhm.
same thing.
So it's this zero sum mindset where if there
Yeah.
is a victory for you, it is automatically assumed that I have somehow lost because you won, therefore I lost. But you're right. I don't see life as a zero sum game,
Yeah.
and especially someone's own self improvement. Like you getting better does not make me smaller or anything else. It just makes you stronger. And like, why would we not want to celebrate that?
Yeah, there's this saying, I heard Tony Robbins say it. I don't know if it's his original saying or if he got it from someone else, but there's two ways to build the tallest building in town. You can either build your building taller than everybody else's, or you can build your building and then tear down everybody else's. So it's kind of the same concept.
I was wanting not to like the same because I'm not a very big Tony Robbins fan. But I was like, dang, that is actually really solid. That I
Yeah.
like that
Well, it might
analogy
not
though.
be his
It's
original quote. I don't know. I just heard him say it.
that is that is one of the things that like I kind of like gauge how strong of a person is, and that is what do they do with power? Do they lift people up or tear people down? And I
Exactly.
I think that can tell you a lot about someone.
Agree. And another way to phrase this is abundance versus scarcity, because I think a lot of times those terms are used in terms of money, and it can be
Mhm.
obviously, but how you do one thing is how you do everything because money is just energy. So, power, anything else, it's like, yeah, are you lifting people up and inspiring people? Or are you tearing them down?
It's really interesting that money is energy. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit? I don't think I've heard a phrase like that before.
Well, because a lot of people think of money as transactional. And in all fairness, it is because you can't pay your bills with love and light, you know? But at the end of the day, money is also about like receiving and circulating because again, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you have an abundance mindset with money, you have that abundance mindset for the rest of your life. So for example, I have an abundance mindset with money, meaning like, for example, I just had an unexpected expense with my car over the weekend, but I looked at it as I'm supporting this auto shop. and whatever goes out will come back because I
Mm.
receive and circulate money just like I receive and circulate my own inner glow to inspire and uplift people. So, it's just
It
like
is
how you live your life, basically.
It's so interesting, though, that perspective switch and how powerful that can be in kind of like setting your reality, so to
Yeah.
speak. I mean, because if it were me, I would not be having this positive attitude about the unexpected mechanic bill. But I didn't think about it of like, this is actually, I'm supporting a small business and, that whatever's going to come back to me. I do like that. But do we have a timetable on like when it will come back or anything?
Oh, no, I don't, like, ever do that. I have seen, like, because I do follow some manifestation people, and sometimes they will do
Mhm.
challenges, like, $1,000 in 24 hours. Yeah, I'm not big on that because I don't know, like, divine timing isn't a date on a calendar, so, no,
Mm.
I don't really go by the date.
That kinda reminds me of the preachers that I used to watch on, like, the public access channel, yeah, very, like, late at night when I couldn't sleep, it's like, "With just this $10 donation,
Oh,
God
yeah.
is gonna turn this into $1,000 if you believe it." Somehow the pastor would always get the $1,000 and I would
Yes.
end up with 0. I don't know how that worked out. How long have you been a women's coach?
Just over a year now because through my own journey, because I hit an emotional rock bottom about 6 years ago and I invested into myself. I hired a coach and I went through all of this work personally, which was not an easy road, but I got to the point where I started questioning, what do I want? What makes me feel good? What's aligned with my ideal life? And I had this really stark realization that I hated working in corporate America. And I would love to say that as soon as I had that epiphany that I just quit and started my own business. But I had all these excuses because I was making good money, I had the benefits, so it wasn't necessarily an easy transition, but I'm a firm believer that if you're not on your life's path, then life will force you onto that path in a way that you
Mm.
not find very pleasant. And that's why I usually believe in challenging yourself. And I did keep telling myself, yeah, I'll leave, but I wasn't really taking any action towards doing it. So I ended up getting transferred to this team, and my manager was a raging B word. And I normally don't even use that word to talk about females because it's so disrespectful, but she deserves it.
Ballbuster?
Yeah, let's just call it that. Anyway, so I was like, "Oh, this is my sign to leave." And even then, it took me about 3 months from the time I decided to leave till the time I left. It took about 3 months because I was like, I have to get to a point where thinking about quitting my job doesn't send me into an anxiety attack. And it took about 3 months to do that. And then I quit and started my own business.
Isn't that Isn't that amazing? I was a very similar situation with starting the podcast. There were like really big reasons why I wanted to do it, but I kept finding every excuse in the world. Like, no, I can't do it right. Just like right this week. I bet, but next week
Yeah.
though, next week is the week. And I saw myself kind of keep pushing it off, and then finally I was just like, no, I've got to start.
And then you probably were like, oh, I wish I would have done this sooner, right?
Yes. I was like, I got upset at myself for a while. I was like,
Yeah.
you know what? If I would have I could have been, like 2 months further along right now if I would have only just listened to myself.
Yeah.
But that being said, I don't think I'm going to learn the lesson. I'll still I'll still ignore myself for a while.
Yeah. I mean, it's those fears though, right? Because you were probably like, what if it fails? I don't know what I'm doing. And all the things we try to tell ourselves to talk ourselves out of things.
That I think you hit something really strong there, and that is like if I fail, like it's gonna. I think I imagined some like public shaming or something, as if I was going to be like having
Yeah.
forced to wear like the scarlet letter of failed podcast hosts. I don't know how that would pan out, but I'm assuming that it would have been something like that. But the the more that I thought about it, like I kind of realized that if it were going to, like, fail, I'll put that in air quotes, it was gonna be so small that, like, that town square would be like a town of 1, and it would be me pillaring myself the whole time, and
Yeah.
so
So true.
maybe I
Because
should
we're
just start.
usually, yeah, our own worst critic. But yeah, that's just it, right? Because the stories that we play in our head of like how horrible things are going to be, like, even if it did, to your point, quote unquote, fail, it would have been as bad as like the vision you had in your head.
And it also said something that, like that you had kind of worked for like doing the 6 years and stuff, but you did it, you put in the work yourself.
Yes.
I think that is very, very important. If you were going to work with a therapist, a coach, anything like that, they better have done the work and better be doing the work themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and especially because, like I can get all the certifications in the world, but that's just information, right? Like you don't know until you actually practice it in your day-to-day life. So yeah, I definitely have live experience.
What kind of certifications, did you
Basically, School of Hard Knocks.
I actually have that on my LinkedIn profile. I
Oh,
graduated
really?
from the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
My grandmother would say that to me all the time whenever I was growing up, so it's kind of a homage to her.
I honestly, if you think about it, and I did think about getting coaching certifications, but I thought about, because I have a college degree, and I actually like thought about like how valuable was that in my work experience? Not very much, right?
Yeah.
It's just a piece of paper. And I feel like
Mhm.
also in talking to other coaches and seeing like their certifications and what they're doing, I'm like, I can do the exact same thing because I have the lived experience. So, yeah, that's how I feel about it. I don't feel any less than other coaches with a gazillion or even one certification.
I was a political science major, so, like, I would set myself up to, like, not have anything to fall back on. In hindsight, like, I didn't see many political scientists, like, running around, but, like, when I made that decision to major in it, so I don't really know what was going through my head. But, yeah, no, I definitely haven't used it.
Yeah, I don't know if political science major is still the same way, but when I went to college, political science majors were either basically undecided, but just wanted to pick something, or they wanted to be lawyers, and that's just what they were doing until they applied for law school. So it's like one to the other.
Gosh, this is so embarrassing. My game plan was to go to college, and as soon as I graduated from college, I was going to go back to my hometown of like 10,000 people and run for mayor, and then use that as my platform to become senator from the town of like 10,000.
That's actually like a really cool vision, though.
And now I'm a podcast host, so you can tell that it didn't quite pan out for me, but
I don't think I could just tell by talking to you, you're not the politician type. You know what I mean?
thank you. That is actually a huge. I would have like taken that as the like worst diss 15 or 20 years ago, but like hearing that now, I'm like, oh, thank goodness.
Because you're too real. Like, you can't talk like this when you're a politician.
Isn't that sad?
It is.
Like the one job that you would think you would want someone to just be able to like tell you how it is. You're like, no, 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 you would never be able to be, you would never be good in politics.
I know.
But so how did you like finally, you jumped in, you're like, hey, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna become the coach or gonna become a coach. I can imagine that was a like very difficult decision for a lot of, you had the stable job and all, but to go from that stable foundation to complete like instability. Can
Yeah.
you kind of talk about what it was like to go from like, that point of like security but unhappiness to
Yeah.
the insecurity, but hey, there's some potential here.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you hit one of the main points because, again, it took me 3 months to go from just even having the thought I'm going to quit. It would send me into a total anxiety attack. And so I had to start thinking about my reason why. And number one was I just want to live a life that's happy. And when I really started thinking about it, because I was like, okay, at first I'm not going to be making as much money or whatever. But once I started thinking about that aspect, even I was wasting so much money on impulse purchases because I was so miserable. And
Mhm.
honestly, one of the first things that happened when I quit my job, I stopped spending as much money because I wasn't miserable and I didn't need the dopamine hit from online shopping. So I was like, oh, I could have done this years ago. Another huge thing that I worked through in that 3-month period was just I had to work on my own self-trust because I just had to have such a fierce belief in myself because I was like, I'm the kind of person, like I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, I'm the kind of person, I figure shit out and I get shit done. So, and I was so passionate about helping other women and I knew that I could do it. So just finding my reason why and having that fierce belief in myself, I got to the point where I was like, why wouldn't I quit my job? So, and again, it was a process. And because I had already done so much inner work, it only took 3 months, but change takes time.
How would you have defined happiness before, like, say, but before you started working with your coach? How would you have defined it?
Uh, Probably by a dollar amount, which even then, logically, I would know sounded ridiculous because I will never forget, like when I first started working in corporate America, my number one goal was to hit 6 figures. I was like, once I hit 6 figures, then I've made it. And then I hit 6 figures, and that dopamine hit lasted maybe a few days, like maybe a week. And then it's like, now here's my next goal. And it was like, it was never enough. Like the money never fills the void. And so now it's again, like money is nice because obviously it pays your bills and, you can have nice things. But ultimately, what matters to me is that inner happiness and fulfillment. And that gets filled by you, like nothing outside of yourself.
So that was you kind of jumped it, but like, how do you define happiness now?
Yeah. So that's like what I call your inner glow because through working with my coach, over time, I just started like feeling this warm energy in my chest. And I started to have this conscious realization. I was like, I do love myself. I do respect myself. I do trust myself. And so that's how I came up with the name Inner Glow because like that's how it feels when you're just so excited about who you are and your own life. And when you're in that state, you just really stop giving a shit about what anyone else thinks because when I started living by my own rules for life, that's when I became excited about my life and happy with who I was. But when I was living for society and corporate America and everyone else, I felt like I was in the rat race, like always chasing the next raise and promotion.
So I think that if you and I sat down 5 years ago and we're having this conversation, but you'd already done the work and you're his current self, I would have been intimidated and scared. Well, what it is that like there's something about like when someone is secure in themselves and you can see that strength. If you are insecure and you feel weak, that like security from that other person is a giant mirror and is just like letting you know like, hey, you're really weak. You're really weak, and I think that's where the discomfort would have come from. Like every time you would have said something, you would just have been reminding me of like how weak I was.
First of all, I appreciate your vulnerability. And second of all, actually, that's the lesson I learned in corporate America because I'm just going to be controversial for a second, but I understood a lot more about corporate America once I left. But when I was insecure and had very low self-worth, I was thriving in corporate America. But when I started to do the work on myself and started gaining that confidence, people started hating me, which was one of the reasons why I think my manager hated me so much because like I didn't do anything. She actually even recruited me to her team. And then that she would just like, yeah, be evil. And I remember one day, the day it got worse and there was like a point of no return, we were having a conversation and I said something about, I was like, I do one thing a day that brings me joy because, I deserve to be happy, whatever. That triggered the shit out of her. And from that day on, she was like so mean to me. And I was like, yeah, I just triggered her insecurities because I could tell she wasn't happy with her life. I don't know what was going on in her personal life. So that's actually a really vulnerable reflection. So I appreciate you for sharing that.
Oh, well, thank you. I feel very strong now. It's the only
Yeah.
reason why I can't say it. But that is actually interesting, though. Like, there is now like a feeling of security in myself to where I don't mind being like vulnerable. That's vulnerable to me now is it's almost like a pathway to connect with someone.
Yeah.
It's a way of getting stronger.
I wish more men understood this. I was actually having a conversation with a male friend last week, and because we were talking about how a lot of men aren't masculine anymore. And he was saying it's because they aren't open with their emotions, and not saying you have to be like a crying sap all of the time, but just being a little connected to that vulnerability and your feelings and being able to say something like that actually made me respect you more as a man. You know what I mean? And I think most men don't realize like that's how it comes off to other people.
So, and well, at least with me, and a lot of guys I know, there is there's like you need to be logical, like take
Mhm.
emotions out of it. We just
Yeah.
have to use our logic brain. But the more work I do, and the more like connected that I feel like with my emotions and my feelings, I feel like I can be more logical as long as I am connected to my feelings and emotions.
I love that. Well, and that actually makes sense, right? Because your mind and body are connected. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
It's interesting that you said that your mind and body are connected. So, for the first like 6 months of my therapy, it was very much like just trying to find where sensations were in my
Mm.
body, and like, hey, what is your body trying to tell you? Like, I tell people that like for the first 6 months, my brain and my body were just trying to connect. Uh, for what I thought was the first time, but I think that they had been connected at birth, and then just kind of like slowly kind of moved that way. But very much so, though. There was such a big disconnect.
And you know what's crazy? Because I don't know if you still struggle with this. I still struggle because I do the same thing. If I'm feeling a certain way, I'm better at identifying it in my body, but I will ask myself, like, what emotion am I feeling? Oh, this isn't my water bottle. I even have a water bottle, not this one. Have you ever seen the emotion wheel?
Mhm.
Like, I'll even, like, look at my water bottle sometimes because I have such trouble naming the emotion.
It's funny that you said, like, I definitely do that, and I also try to get my feelings to talk to me. I
I do that
will, like,
too.
sit down and just like, "Hey, man, I'm feeling some tightness in my chest," or something like, Is there something that you wanna tell me? Like, what's going on?" And if I can just, like, sit with myself and sit with that, like, uncomfortable feeling for a little bit, I usually feel a lot better afterwards.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that. I actually just made a YouTube playlist on anxiety, and that's one of
Mm,
the things I was talking actually, the name of the playlist is You plus anxiety equal BFF, because the whole key is being friends, because usually when you
mhm.
have a pleasant emotion, you wanna push it away. But yeah, just like, "What are you trying to tell me?" Like, "I'm here for you." Like, "Let's solve this together." Like, the key is being friends with your emotions.
And, so a word that is used a lot now, regulate. I need to be regulated. Make sure that like, and I think that I had, at the beginning would be like, regulated means that like, if I feel anxiety, I can make it go away.
Yeah.
That would be how to regulate myself. But kind of the longer, the more work I do, if I just get rid of that anxiety, I'm not actually like figuring out where like, what is that anxiety trying to tell me in the first place? Because there's a reason it's there. It's
Yep.
gonna come back up if I don't address it.
No, that's so true, because you wanna find out what the thing is, because that was the whole point of the playlist, because there was a period in my life, I was surrounded by shitty people, and because I was, like, repressing my anxiety and trying to make it go away, I wasn't addressing the main cause that was actually causing the anxiety. So, yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, so the key is feeling safe in your body while you're feeling the feelings, because that's the problem, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily feel good, so then that exacerbates the whole situation, because then you're like, now I needed to get it to go away and I don't want to feel this way. And that just makes it even worse.
So how do you like, do you teach your clients to be able to get to the point where they can like sit with their emotions and work through things?
Yeah. So my number one recommendation for when you're triggered, because I think this is when you most need it. And I'll get to another scenario in a second. And you've probably heard of this because this is not my original thing, but when you are triggered, the physiological sensations in your body, they only last for 90 seconds. That's a scientific fact. I
Hmm.
didn't make that up. Nobody else made that up. The reason that they last longer is because of the emotional stories that you tell yourself in your head. So when you get triggered and you're having that reaction, the first step is to get rid of the story. And I know that's easier said than done, but the more you do it, the easier it is. And I
Mhm.
always tell myself it's just temporary, which in all fairness, it is, because you do have to address the emotional story later, but you can't do it when you're in that heightened state. So get rid of the story. And then, and this is where knowing where you feel it in your body comes in, because for example, when I feel anxiety, I feel it in my chest. So the second step is to focus only on the physical sensations in your body. So I'll put like a hand on my chest, and then I also put a hand around my diaphragm or stomach to make sure I'm
Mm.
breathing. And I actually tell myself, I am safe in my body. I am safe in my body. If I'm at home, which is a safe space, I will like look around because that confirms that I'm in a physical safe space. But I just am reaffirming to myself that I am safe. And as long as you get rid of the emotional story, the physical sensations do go away in 90 seconds. And in general, I always recommend, because I think when we talk about nervous system, people really only talk about triggering moments like that. But I am of the belief you should be treating your nervous system like a baby. Like if you have a baby, you're like, does it need to eat? Does it need to take a nap? Does it need a diaper change? Like you're always on alert. Like, what do you need? And I do that to my own nervous system. Like I'll do check-ins throughout the day. Like, okay, like again, how am I feeling? Do I feel anything in my body? Or sometimes I'll just take a break. I love grounding, and there's a patch of grass outside of my building. So sometimes even if I don't feel like I need anything, I'll just go ground in nature just to, I call it recharging my nervous system,
Mhm.
just like you would charge your phone. So there's like simple practices that I think everybody should be doing every day just for that maintenance.
Do you do, like, bare feet? Does that kind
Oh, yeah.
of so it's
Well,
very much like
I just lay in the grass. Like I lay on
ah,
my back, and then I put like I have my knees bent so that my feet are on the ground as well. But yeah, I think it works just walking through grass barefoot even.
mm.
But I like to like get all in it and really be in the grass.
My allergies don't
Oh yeah.
lend themselves to that, but what I do love, there is a canal that is maybe 3 and a half blocks from our house, and if I am feeling down or on the reverse end, if I am feeling super excited and like I need to kind of go down a
Oh
little
yeah.
bit, go walk around the canal. It's amazing how regulating water can be, like, up
Yes.
and down both ways.
Yeah. I know. I get in the ocean almost every day, and but the thing about ocean though, it also has a lot of energy. So I usually ground after I get out of the ocean.
Oh, okay, I didn't think of it like that, but yeah, like, you're right, there is, like, the kind of the
Yeah.
constant moving.
So it's refreshing, but then I feel like I just need like the groundedness. I don't know. And that's just me.
No, no, that makes sense though. Like I kinda get that. We have a bay and a cape. So I live like right on the Chesapeake Bay, and we also have a 3-year-old son. So I'll I'll go to like the bays and the capes where they don't have like the intense waves as like the
Yeah.
ocean
The
does.
calm waters.
And now that you've mentioned it, and I've never really thought about it until you said it, but like it is a completely different experience after we leave, like, going from the ocean versus, like, being in the bay where it's more, like, calm in the water. I'd
Yeah.
never connected that until you said it. That's
Well,
really
even
interesting.
like during the full moon, you can feel when you're getting out of the water, the like magnetic pull. Cause sometimes like the tide, you know how it comes back once it hits the shore? Like you can feel
Mhm.
like how that's even stronger during the full moon. So sometimes that even throws me off because it's like, oh, this is kind of jarring. Yeah. I think I'm just really sensitive to energy too, though.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah. Well, not with some of the stuff going on in the world, but yeah, in general, I think it's good.
That is true. Like, I don't think at this point, like, reality is not for people with a conscience right now.
Yeah.
I can imagine that, like, with your clients, you have got a wide range of people who are, like, kind of just doing the kind of the stuff we're talking about, trying to find like the inner globe. But sure, you also get some that are like, "Hey, the world is fucking shit right now.
Yeah.
What? How do you deal with that effectively? Because they are objectively speaking truth."
Agree. And this is what I tell people because, there's a lot of fear propaganda and there's definitely a lot of anger in the world right now. So I'm of the belief you can either contribute to fear and anger, or you can contribute to raising the vibration of the universe. So I'm not suggesting that you bury your head in the sand. You obviously have to be informed of things, but you don't have to get pulled into it. And so what I always recommend people to do, because I think where people get frustrated is that on an individual level, it doesn't feel like there's much you can do. So you start feeling helpless because it's like there's so much going on and I can't really do anything about it. But there is at least one thing you can do, and that is send loving energy to the people who need it. And
Mm.
there's like I've actually found a statistic, because I know sometimes when I say that, it sounds like woo woo and not really grounded. But science and woo woo are really not that far off, because energy is energy. That's based in science and woo woo. And there's like a statistic, like if one person can send out loving energy, it can affect 500,000 people. I need to look it up. It's something like that. But my point is, you sending loving energy into the world, it contributes to raising the vibration, and that especially hits the people who need it. So you don't have to get, like, yes, you can care, but you don't have to get pulled into that fear and anger of the world.
I like that. I haven't thought about it like kind of like I'm more, I guess, like a materialist, in that and kind of in that sense. I haven't really thought about it like from like raising vibration, but just like for me, just on an individual level, I feel better if I am like exuding
But that
like
helps
love
raising the
and passing that
vibration.
out.
Yeah. No,
And
I
so,
mean,
hey,
that helps. Yeah.
if that's raising the vibration, great. But like, it makes me feel better. It's like it's a win then.
Yeah, but that's another reason why I call it the inner glow, because yes,
Mhm.
you feel better, but people outside of you notice too, because I don't know, like your family, your friends, they probably notice when you're feeling good and in a better mood, right? And so energetically that lifts them up as well. So it's like there's this
That is
unspoken thing going on. Yeah.
It's so interesting to me, because you're right, like, people have, like, said things and stuff, and to me, I look the exact same as I always have, like, I guess maybe kind of talking a little different, but it would be very difficult to be like, "This guy is clearly, like, completely different." So it's so interesting to me that humans can pick up on that, like, just
Yeah.
those tiny little things.
Well, because we all have intuition, and I think energy is like what we communicate at the intuitive level. So, yeah, we can definitely pick that up on each other, whether we consciously realize it or not.
My energy's pretty good, right?
Oh, no, it's
I'm
great.
feeling
Yeah.
good about it, yeah. I didn't wanna, like, go through this whole conversation and at the end you'd be like, "Yeah, no, your energy, terrible, man."
No, you would probably already be able to tell, because like if I'm not like meshing with someone's energy, I'm usually like pretty like I'm not interactive as I am now. So yeah, your energy's good.
That is another thing that I've noticed, that if I am myself, it's giving the person that I am talking to kind of permission to be themselves,
Exactly.
and, like, I feel much more of a connection to someone whenever I'm connected to myself first,
And that's
and
when you
it's
raise the
kind of a
vibration of the universe. So see, you're
man,
doing it.
I've been raising vibrations all day, didn't even realize it. Is there like a vibration of the year award or anything? Because I would like to
Yeah.
nominate myself.
I mean, let's just invent it. Yeah.
Now I'm kind of feeling like Donald Trump, like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, here you go, Adam. This is your vibration of the year award, buddy. Good job. What was the like your first client where you had the where you finally had like the inner glow, kind of the modality, so to speak, and kind of had the message? Like, what was it like to be able to like kind of spread that for the first time? Can you kind of like go back to
Yeah. It felt really good because she came to me after a breakup, and it's funny because, you can understand people's experience because you've been there. So she came to me after this breakup and she was like, "Oh, I'm never going to find love again, blah, blah, blah," which I knew she was just in her feelings, and you know how it is. But so we had a conversation because she had definitely been a people pleaser. She was always giving to the relationship and not really asking herself, what do I want in a relationship, or really having standards for the person that she wanted in her life. And I remember we talked about that, and she was afraid of having standards because she was like, well, that makes the dating pool even smaller and I'm already not going to find anyone. But she
That
started
just bummed me out.
I know, she was, like, really
It's her
disheartened,
heart.
but she, like, tapped into her inner glow, and she was, like, attracting all kinds of men that were, like, way better quality, and, like, she would go on dates, and she would be, "What do I want? Is this someone I want in my life?" And I was like, "Yes, yes, yes." So, yeah, it feels really good to help people find their light.
Uh, so whenever you kind of like look back in the corporate world, it seems to me kind of like looking back where they replace like any kind of internal validation that you would have of yourself with like ice cream parties and a bonus at the end, maybe if you were like doing something. Do you think that is nefarious? Like, do you think companies know what they are doing whenever they kind of set up this structure?
Yes. And I know this is controversial and may even sound bitchy or even jaded, and admittedly, I am jaded from corporate America, but
I am a giant bitch, so we can
okay.
we can just go straight ahead. It's fine.
I think corporate America thrives on hiring people who are very insecure and have low self-worth because then they can get away with like, "Oh, you killed it this year. Here's a pizza party." Whereas someone who has high self-worth and standards is like, "Are you effing kidding me? This is insulting." You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
yeah, or also what I learned was because the more self-worth I started getting, because I went through my healing journey in corporate America. The more self-worth I started getting and the more I was rekindling my inner glow, the more I would speak up about things. Like, for example, one time I was on a team with a really low performer, and not only was she dragging our team down, she was dragging other teams down. And so I was like, I have to say something. And my manager did not like that. And I was like, oh, she like thrives on not being challenged and being an incompetent manager. And yeah, I think the entire system is thrives on this insecurity. I actually think it plays out as a dysfunctional family because like in a
Mm.
dysfunctional family, everybody has their role. And I think you have a lot of people in like lower levels who are like trying to overperform to impress their parents who are like the senior levels, and it's just so dysfunctional.
That was me.
Yeah.
That is so I had never really kind of like thought about it as like a dysfunctional family type situation. Because as I was asking the question, I was like, I think I'm like setting up like unwittingly setting up a trap for her because even though it is bad, I don't know if there is like the intent, the malicious intent. But whenever you talk about it in the context of it being like a dysfunctional family, those most of the times people play the roles in a dysfunctional family. They do not consciously realize that they
Yeah.
are doing it.
And I will say, on some level, I do think a lot of it is playing out unconsciously, but nobody ever steps out of their role to be like, hey, why are we still doing things this way or whatever? So I do think there's a lot of compliance in the people who are aware.
It is fascinating that like, and I'm just seeing like the perfect analogies to it, but like finally it takes the one person in the family that has just like had enough and is like, screw it, I'm going to do the work for myself. I'm going to stop the cycle here. And then they end up being the black sheep that
Yeah.
gets
No, it
gets out.
played out the same way in corporate America that it did in my family. Yeah. Because nobody in my family liked me speaking up either. So there is this uncomfortable growth phase. And I don't hide that from any of my clients. Like,
Yeah.
well, first of all, just in yourself, you have to face a lot of things about yourself. Like, I had to face how I was contributing to a lot of my problems, and that is not easy. You have to start going against the grain of things. That is not easy. But once you get over that hump, it gets so much better.
Let me ask you this, because this is something that I have not been able to figure out, and it comes from you talking about your introspection. You had to take a real hard look at yourself and be like, "Wow, I am contributing to things that I don't like, and I want to stop." Why can some people do that and others can't?
Because you have to face a lot of shame, and some people cannot face their own shame. And that is another reason why, because a lot of people think, like, oh, you must help so many women. And I do, but I don't help as many as I want because I have conversations with women. I know they need help. I know they need help, but they're not ready to face themselves. And I'm kind of in the because I know some coaches are hardcore salespeople, so they will like try to overcome the objection. But it's like,
Mhm.
I don't wanna try to, like, talk someone into coaching with me, and then they're just gonna be, like, constantly terrified and never really wanting to take action. I want someone who's like, "I'm ready to change my life, and I will do whatever it takes no matter how difficult, certain, or uncertain or scary." You know what I mean? So, um
How can you tell? Like because I'm sure everybody tells you, I'm going to do this. I'm ready to. What separates or where you're like, okay, well, this person's full of shit. Okay, this person they may want to do this.
you can tell immediately because people are resistant to admitting their feelings or admitting what's really going on. Because I always try to dig a level deeper, like what's holding you back or whatever. And some people can be like, well, I'm scared of this, I'm scared of that. Or it's because been this way my whole life and I'm just tired of it and ready to change. And then other people are like, well, I don't know. It just doesn't feel good. And I don't know why. And so you can just tell by the first conversation.
Do you have like a favorite group to kind of to work with? I was thinking of kind of intellectualizers and like well I do this because blah blah, being able to give you the exact reason why they do everything, but are powerless to stop the cycle. Or
Yeah.
like neurodivergent folks. Do you have kind of like a
It's funny you say that because sometimes self aware people are equally as hard to work with because they are 100% aware of their patterns, but then they fall into other patterns of like either over analyzing. Because you just mentioned, like, oh, I do this because XYZ, whatever. But then they have blind spots to the other reasons why they're doing it. Or, yeah, it's like, so self aware people can be difficult in another way. But my whole thing is I just want to work with people who are ready to like step up and face the difficulties and challenges and actually change their lives. And there are people like that, which I love. And again, I'm all about, putting this energy out into the universe because I feel like the more people doing the work, it's this ripple effect. And then they'll start inspiring the people who maybe aren't there yet. So I feel like the people who aren't there yet, like I don't consider them lost causes. It's like hopefully they still follow me or follow someone else who's putting out similar messages as me. And I feel like eventually they'll get there because I resisted my own change for a long time. So I totally
yeah?
get it. And you have to be ready because it's like, the whole concept of rehab, like if you force someone to go to rehab for a drug addiction, it usually doesn't work. But if they really
Mm.
want to make changes in their life and they want to go, then it usually works. So it's the same concept with coaching.
I like how you said that just because it's not like I can do this today, that doesn't mean that they're a lost cause. Um, I think I tried therapy 2 or 3 times before I like started working with my therapist now. And looking back on those times, I definitely wasn't ready. It
Yeah.
was, like somebody telling me, you should probably see a therapist. And I'm like, okay, well, if you get off my back, I'll go do it. That's kind of the reason I did it. It took a long time to kind of get to the spot where I'm like, okay, it's basically change or die at this point.
Yeah. And honestly, the therapist that you originally went to and then quit, they could probably tell when they were working with you, like, oh, he's not going to stick with it. Like you can just tell.
Yeah,
You can tell when someone's heart isn't in.
probably. So I thought I was like, man, that she probably thinks I'm like the most the most improved client. I was like every session I would just like, I wonder what she wants me. I wonder what she wants to hear today. And that was kind of how I
Oh,
would gauge it. And yeah, so no, I did not get a whole lot done. And I'm sure she is a fabulous therapist and all. But
yeah.
just if you had me as a client back then, you were not going to get good work.
But yeah, I love that you can admit that in hindsight. But I did the same thing for like basically all of my therapies. Like, yeah, I tried therapy. I would try things and they didn't work. But in hindsight, I was like, yeah, but I wasn't really dedicated or committed to doing the work. So I can see why it didn't work.
Kind of like looking back, I was going to be like, yeah, and then finally I was like, yes, and I am going to change for myself, but that's actually not true. I started therapy because my son was born,
Mm,
and I could see that I was repeating patterns that I was like that I had told myself whenever I was a kid. I was like, I am never going to do this. I'm not going to do this,
yeah.
and then I could see myself like starting to go down that road, and I was like, no. And so I felt like I was a lost cause, but I was like, maybe I can get some tips and tricks to be able to like make it stop with me and maybe my son will be okay. That was kind
Um,
of like the impetus.
I love that though. Yeah, I think you always have to have a reason why. Sometimes it is yourself, sometimes it's other people. But I really love how you said when your son was born, because one of my early mentors, he was telling us about how the best parenting book he ever read, because his son was like 2 or 3 at the time. He was like, the best parenting book he ever read. It wasn't about you do XYZ to be a parent. It was about working on yourself because that's the best thing you can do for your kids. Yeah.
Yes, that's and it was after that like 6 months I told you where it was like the very like elementary level. Like there was kind of like whenever the brain and body connected, that was the point where I was like, hey, you know what? Maybe like I can work on myself here. You know, like there's some hope for me yet. I think so. It definitely like sticking with it and just doing those like things where you know my therapist would like ask me how I'm feeling and I would be really good at giving thoughts like, well, I think blah blah
Yeah.
blah, but I could not give you a feeling to save my to s-
Yeah, it's hard. Like I said, I still struggle with that. Like, how am I actually feeling?
I may have to get one of the cups that you were talking about that had the
Yeah, I just
feeling
want a
chart on it.
sticker and it's on one of my water bottles. I reference it all the time.
Whenever I first saw that, I thought it was like one of those like astrological, so you know, like where they have
It
like the
looks like
different.
that. Yeah.
And so I was like, why in the world does she have like astrology and for therapy? This doesn't make any sense. But yeah, it was me that was way off. To be fair, at that point, astrology and feelings I had about the same grasp on both. So like,
That's actually like a
with,
funny metaphor if you think about it.
you only work with women, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm
Okay.
actually not
So,
opposed to working with men. My
well,
only thing is
now thank you after this great conversation.
yeah, because there are nuances, but here's the funny thing. Because the coach
Mhm.
I hired, because I had an emotional rock bottom 6 years ago and I was like, I need to live my life a different way. I hired a coach. The coach I hired was actually a men's dating coach because I'll explain. I had met him at a healing intensive and we were connected on Instagram. So I knew he was a men's dating coach, but he didn't teach men pickup artist type stuff. He taught
Mm.
men how to be the best versions of themselves so that they could attract, a high quality woman that meets them on that level. So he would be talking about authenticity and connecting and things like that. And I really liked his style. So when I got to this point where it's like, I need help and I need help now, like he was the first person I thought of. And he had never coached one on one with a woman before, but, like, it worked out really well, and I feel like I even learned more because he would tell me a
Mm.
lot of things from a man's perspective, and I was like, "Oh, I never thought about that." Or, like, he would even tell me about things that his men would struggle with in dating, and I didn't realize, like, how stressful dating was for men. So it also gave me a lot of compassion for a lot of the things that men go through. So, yeah, I'm not opposed to working with men. I usually do market to women, though, because I do think
I
men need
do.
to doing more of this kind of work.
Oh, yeah, I wholeheartedly concur. I think this is so interesting, though, that the answer to, like, dating troubles if you're a man, or if you are going through like, a transitional point in your life, the answer is still be yourself.
Yeah.
I love
That's
that.
the answer for anything. Like, if you go to a career coach or whatever, like, that's what they should be teaching you, regardless of what their niche is.
You know, it's so it almost seems kind of, like, backwards. Why do you need a teacher to be able to teach
I
you how to
know.
be yourself?
Well, so this is what I tell people because I feel like a lot of messaging, especially with self help books, but a lot of other things, it's like you need to fix yourself, you're broken or whatever. But it all goes back to what I was saying earlier. When you're a kid, that light is shining. I mean, you've seen kids, like they don't give a shit, but then it starts getting dim. So it's not about fixing yourself, it's about rekindling what's already in you because we've just learned to suppress it and hide it. Even our feelings, like as a little boy, I'm sure you had all the feelings, but you just learned to override them.
It depends on when you ask, at the time, no, absolutely not, I had no feelings, but looking back now, yes, I did have a lot, I was trying my best
Yeah.
to push them down.
Yeah. So just remembering that.
So if our listeners want to find out a little bit more about you, I mean, I do personally, so I'm assuming they do as well.
Yeah.
How can they find you?
The best way is my website, which is Inner Glow by Angie. I also wrote a book, which we didn't even get to. So there's information on
Oh,
my
I'm
book.
so
No,
sorry.
that's okay because the information is on my website. The main two social media platforms I'm active on are Instagram and YouTube. So my links are on there.
Okay.
There's also information on my coaching program. And I have a special offer for your listeners because I used to
Okay.
do a free 1 hour call for anybody. I don't have the time for that anymore. But basically, this 1 hour call is my glow method. The G stands for go back to your childhood, because usually there's one limiting belief that you have that's spawning all of these other fears and limiting beliefs that you have. So on that call, we find the root of your limiting belief. And even if we don't continue to work together, that's like really valuable information to have
Very valuable.
to either take it on your day-to-day life or go to therapy or whatever. But I have an application on my website. If you fill out the application and say you've heard me on this podcast, then you kind of bypass the whole application process and I will book you on one of those calls. So yes, that is
All
my
right.
gift to you and your listeners.
And the name of your book is Running in Slippers. Is that
Yes,
right?
correct.
Okay. And where can people buy that book?
Just go to my website and there's a link for my book, and I have all of the consolidated links because it's available on paperback, Audible, and Kindle, or any audiobook.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we will make sure to have your website in the description below. So feel free to click, but wait until after we get finished talking before you click.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we will definitely check that out because this has been such a fun conversation.
Yeah. Likewise.
Yeah, Angie, thank you for acting out with me.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on.